Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and today we got to talk about a topic that defined so many discussions back in Endwalker: rewards. You've probably heard me complain about reward structure throughout the entirety of the previous expansion. Yes, some of it was about criterion, variant, but it was across the entire thing. A lot of one and done experiences without a lot of replayability, and not very much other than a few baseline things to encourage playing the game on a regular basis. Not demand it, but give someone who wants to spend more time in the game really options with what to do. And it's something that they promised to be working on in Dawntrail, and we didn't really see it a whole lot at the launch of Dawntrail itself. But we now have our first major patch, and we have an idea of some of the things that they're looking at and they're going to do. So let's talk about what their plans are for rewards, at least the generalizations of them, what they accomplished in 7.1, and what they could still be doing better. So in case you haven't heard me ramble on about it enough, in Endwalker there was a massive reward incentive problem, and it made a lot of content just feel unrepeatable, or at least not appealing for the average player to do on repeat, or even do a single time. Like, it was hard to even get people in the door with a lot of the new features. So in Dawntrail, they said that rewards were going to be a big focus, and in fact promised that by about the halfway point of 7.3 that we would have about 50% more rewards than we had in that same time frame in Endwalker, so from between 6.0 to 6.3 compared to 7.0 to 7.3. Now, 50% more rewards is a pretty bold promise, and unfortunately we didn't really get to see a lot of that come to fruition in the actual launch of Dawntrail. Yeah, there were a couple new things like the orange script mount, but it just seemed like more of the same. So it's hard to really have faith in that statement when there's nothing in front of you that really suggests it. But now with 7.1, we actually have a good deal more rewards than we would normally have. And I definitely want to highlight some of them and how they are exactly the things that Final Fantasy XIV not only needs to focus on going forward, but really needs to consider as early as possible in their expansion releases. So a lot of the new rewards that were added in 7.1 are really sprinkled all throughout various parts of the game. Some that sometimes just feel outright abandoned, and some that are usually supported but are now way more valuable than they were before. There are some very simple things that they actually do on the regular, like new gemstone items. I think there's like a new music sheet and a couple of other things, and even the Pelu Pelu Allied Society quest opening with an emote as the reward. Little things like that get people in the door, or at least get them to briefly revisit things that they were doing before. So you're never going to see me complain, but of course those don't really tackle the core issue. Then we get into existing currencies that they've managed to update in some way. And again, a lot of these are contingent on new features being added, but all the same, it is still more. The Mahjong, like, friend announcer pack, what do I call it? The Mahjong commentator packs with like all the scions, being able to sell those for MGP is nice. And I know a lot of you are thinking, who even plays Mahjong? But in Japan in particular, it's very popular, and there are a decent number of people who play it in the Western audiences as well. So having a new reward structure, which can be expanded on in the future with more packs, is always a type of system you want to see built out in the game. Another thing that was updated that sees very sporadic updates and I think is wildly underutilized is the achievement vendor. We actually have achievement tokens in the game, which can then be spent at this vendor for various rewards. And they added the shake drink emote to that. Maybe they added some other things, but that's the big one I see people talking about. And again, this is a criminally underused system. Like, yeah, it's cool to get things directly from achievements, but knowing that hunting achievements is in some capacity helping you get rewards that are more general is something that they should really embrace. Especially with Cider, we have seen so much resurgence of achievement hunters in the game. And if there were more carrots on the end of that same stick, then I think it would really do a lot for people to be motivated to go out and do even some of the more monotonous things in hopes of just picking up a few achievement tokens here and there to snag a reward that's brand new or that they just didn't know existed and didn't have enough tokens to buy. Another thing I really like seeing is the evolution of how they handle music sheet rewards. In the new Alliance raid, Echoes of Vana'diel, or Juno the First Walk, the first part of it, instead of rewarding either the faded sheets that need to be crafted or just outright rewarding the music sheets themselves, instead these tokens drop and you can exchange them for one of 11 different songs that you can purchase in Lower Juno itself. I think a system like this works really well whenever they have a massive number of music sheets that they've added to the game that they want to incentivize people to go out of their way and try and get. And I know that doesn't sound like a whole lot, but having more collection-based things in your game, whether it be an orchestrion or eyeglasses or whatever they decide to add, it's nice to have a system that supports the idea of, oh, I just need to win one more. I just need to win one more. Oh, can I win two? How many do I still need? You want people to have more reasons to be visiting your content, even if there's small reasons that don't necessarily appeal to the masses. People who want the triple triad card is another good example. People who are trying to collect the armor to make a set for glam. All of those things become collection-based systems. And when you make the collection-based systems more approachable, you actually add a lot of value to the content. So I'm really hoping this continues not only for the future Final Fantasy XI Alliance raids, but Alliance raids in the future. I think it also somewhat motivates them to create a lot of new tracks for the individual pieces of content so they can have these music sheet tokens that are available. I know with Final Fantasy XI, it's a bit of a luxury because they are just pulling the original tracks that they already have. None of these are reorchestrations, so throwing in 11 music sheets is realistically easier here than it would be for something like a brand new original raid. That being said, I think there's a lesson to be learned from that, and I hope that they take other collection-based systems in the game, whether it be framer kits for portraits and adventure plates, or even things like fashion accessories, and begin to understand that you can stack those inside of Alliance raids and add value to them. So just one little thing that I think speaks a lot about what they need to do going forward. Another thing that was nice to see is the addition of new mounts to content that already had mounts. And this kind of surprised me because we really had no precedent to think that something like this was going to happen, or at least not much of a precedent. One of the big ones is the new hunt mount, the Brachiosaurus. Now, it's not unusual for us to have one, maybe two hunt mounts that become available in an expansion through nuts. However, getting this early kind of encourages the idea that we may see even more than two throughout the rest of the expansion. And 3,200 nuts is not a lot to obtain, so this isn't really going to get major marks from me. But supporting these existing systems is how you get people to at least consider doing them or draw attention to them for first-time players. Just like, hey, where'd you get that? Oh, I haven't really done that thing. You always want to be getting players to find out about content they may not know about and then to potentially get involved with it. The more impressive of the two, though, is the mount token. Now, in 7.0 release, not only did they add a new Fate gemstone mount with the Sugar Glider, but they also added a Ronique mount. The Roniques are like the buffalo that exist out in Shaloni, and that was 100 Ronique tokens, which could be purchased for 1,000 orange scripts apiece. I actually finished my Ronique the day before patch 7.1 came out and went, whew, guess I'm done with orange scripts for the expansion, because I had no confidence that they would add another mount. Why would I? The name of the token is the Ronique token. So I have the Ronique, odds are I won't need another one. Well, I was wrong because in 7.1 they changed the Ronique token into the mount token and added another mount, the Barrel Tender, which I think is a much more popular idea than what the Ronique was prior. This is important because by changing the Ronique token to the mount token, you've now communicated to the player base that collecting these may have long-term value in the future. Maybe you might not like what's there now, but you don't know what they're going to add there in the future. Or maybe you like one of the things they have there, now you need to consider what they add in the future. I immediately saw that they were doing a mount token, saw, hey, there's going to be longer form support for these orange script mounts. Maybe I should actually do my custom deliveries every week. I was blowing them off. Like, why would I? I got the mount. I could just farm it out in a little bit. It's not that big a deal. But now every week I can go do my custom deliveries, pick up a few tokens, and on top of that, maybe grind in between, and I can hold on to excess tokens for future patches. And again, that type of support structure, I think, is really important because I'm not a gatherer. I'm not someone who really cares to do my custom deliveries every week. And you've now created a system that makes me want to, at the very least, log in for this really minuscule thing. As a company and as a business, that's exactly what you want. I am motivated, and even though I'm only one person, there's bound to be other people who see the same thing and go, maybe it's time I did that too. So little things like that get a lot of praise from me because they're just bare bone essential things that just have to be programmed, made into an item and attached to something that already exists. You don't need to build out whole new systems for it. So that one gets a big up from me. But honestly, I think one of the biggest things that they did for new reward structures was the joke weapons. Now, I call them joke weapons, but I feel like that's a little demeaning because these are essentially contest winner weapons from a while back. So somebody worked hard on these. Like, we call them joke weapons because a lot of them is like cutlery, like a fork, knife, spoon. Like, a lot of it is that kind of stuff, a snow globe for Astro. But it's really fun and creative. And a lot of people, from the moment the patch dropped, went, where are the joke weapons? I think most people went to go check out MGP and they're like, oh, the joke weapons aren't MGP weapons? Well, then where are they from? They come from treasure maps, of all things. Now, treasure maps are actually something that I feel like they've always mostly adequately supported. There's almost always something of really high value in the current expansion, as well as the fact that when people stop doing old expansion maps, those items go up in value as well. So there's a subset of people who either do solos or make groups for the old content. Stormblood maps have a whole sub-community of people trying to get the super rare thief map titles and generally farm those for Gil as well. So reward structure is good, but adding the joke weapons was kind of a big deal for this expansion itself because they were highly sought after weapons. It's a lot of rewards because there's even one for Blue Mage on top of all the other combat jobs. And it drops as a token from inside of the treasure maps, on top of other new rewards that they added in there as well. So now you've got like dozens of new things that people can get. They're still really rare. So people are, again, going to feel more motivated to go out and try it or to try to earn Gil in other ways to purchase the ones they want. Heck, if one person wants even 2 of those, right now, you're looking at tens of millions of Gil or constant involvement in a piece of content that's a little more social, whether you're joining free-for-all map parties in the Party Finder or, you know, grouping up with your friends, be like, oh, do you guys hear that comes from that? Let's make a group. Let's like do that on a Saturday or something like that. Things like that cause you to be social. Treasure maps get you engaging with the open world, even if it's just flying to a location, opening a chest, and then hoping to teleport into a portal and go into an instance. It's still something that engages more systems of the game and adds very long-term value to treasure maps. And that's kind of the thing they needed to do. It's not always about giving me a carrot on the end of a new stick. Sometimes you just need your game to have more micro long-term goals that your player base can go after. Things that aren't going to appeal to absolutely everyone, but if it appeals to a few people or gets a few new people to try said thing, then you've accomplished your goal. If 100 people subscribe for another month because of a new feature you've added, you've given a tangible value to these things. And that's obviously just a random number off the top of my head, but there's a good chance that systems like this have more impact than just those little things. We've seen it with other pieces of content that they've added and how communities budding around those things can really add a lot to the longevity of particular features. There's a reason why Eureka is still as busy as it is to this day. It's because of the way it was built and the community that was built around it, encouraging long-term engagement with a community. We've seen it with the deep dungeons where people like Angelus have fostered massive communities of brand new people to soloing deep dungeons. I'm very glad with these systems is what I'm trying to say. The support of these old systems to show they're not forgotten, and it's not all perfect. Like I said, I think the achievement vendor is still criminally underutilized, but I have to give them props because these are the types of things that players want to see. Heck, even the return of Unreal in 7.1 is just such a massive door opening for people to have a reason to log in weekly. I literally have run Unreals almost every week since they came out back in Shadowbringers. And I have people who stay logged in, who keep subscribing and join those parties every single week. It's one of those things that I hate is not around for the first several months. And I think that's a mistake, that Unreal should at least be around shortly into the expansion and then also reset with 7.1. Not to mention they really shouldn't just completely cycle out everything from within an expansion. They should at least build on that and then maybe change which instance it is weekly, which can encourage people to take breaks if it's a week they don't like, Or if they're like me, they just see dollar signs and they want to make all that gil. So they do it every week regardless of which one it is. So that one's there. Also, even Hall of the Novice, getting a second EXP ring from the second Hall of the Novice stuff that was added. Yo, you can get these massive bonuses for the early levels now. Like if you have a friendship circlet, both EXP rings, maybe you have like the Tidus and Eunice sets, a pre-order earring, which you can now buy the Endwalker one with the Fantasia kit for $10. Like you can be a new player and be insanely stacked on bonus XP, and that could be exciting to see all these options open up. So just kudos on all that stuff. Kudos on a lot of the little rewards, and that's not even including the fact that we still have stuff coming down the pipeline. We have Chaotic, we have Ultimate, which, to be fair, I don't think are as fundamentally different, but Chaotic having the gear, having the multiple mounts, having all the rewards they're saying it's going to have, on top of being a brand new type of content within Final Fantasy XIV, is also very encouraging. But I have other comments for that. And I, again, don't think they've gotten everything right with 7.1's release. Number one, Savage shouldn't still be locked. In odd-numbered patches, I think on the patch, Savage should be unlocked. I just don't see the value in keeping the Savage gear locked to that weekly, lockout for as long as it's there, especially with Ultimate right around the corner, increasing accessibility to that on more jobs. I think it's a higher priority than being like, well, if you want your Savage, you got to do it every week. It still doesn't make sense. And on that same note, I actually think they're slightly off base with the Chaotic Raid rewards. I actually think the Chaotic Raid reward should not be an item level 730 set. It should be an item level 735 set. If Savage is unlocked in the odd numbered patch, you know, a good 6 to 8 weeks ahead of a Chaotic Raid unlocking, then people are geared up and ready to go for the Chaotic Raid and Ultimate itself. But people who haven't finished Ultimate or maybe want a more long-term edge will find a lot of value in a 735 set. Yes, there will eventually be dungeon sets as well, but a 735 set, let's say with 3 materia slots, is something that would be best in slot for Ultimate for pretty much the entire expansion, and then for healers and tanks who are looking for direct hit melts, maybe even beyond that, giving it again that long-term value that's a little bit more than what will boil down to a glam piece, which is what 730 gear will eventually be. However, I will say the reward system they've built out for Chaotic does seem to be pretty good itself. We'll have that, stacking bonus for first-time players, which is something we'll probably see incorporated in other content, and the timed bonus thing might work. I'm not completely confident that that's going to work out. It might be cool if it happens, but will people plan around it? I'm not convinced yet, just because of the difficulty of a Chaotic Alliance raid. But I'm glad to see them trying to also build out new reward systems alongside the release of this new content. Another big fault, and this will be a huge, it's been a fault for like 2 to 2.5 years now. When are they bringing back the old PvP rewards? We were told that fear of missing out, or FOMO, was not going to be a driving factor behind series rewards, but we've still yet to even hear about the idea of them returning. I don't think it needs to be as long a cycle as it is, or 7.1, I should say, should have been the return of 6.1 series rewards for trophy crystals or some sort of PvP currency, wolf marks, whatever they want to do. And the fact that those still haven't been mentioned, in my opinion, is a massive L. They need to at least communicate what they are planning to do, or if they're even still keeping to that statement before, because until we know more, we're just going to keep going. Where are they? And you know what? That's perfectly fair. We were told they would come back. We weren't told when, but I think it's been long enough that we deserve some communication about that particular bit. Now, clearly, they still have some ways to go. However, I'm glad that most of the good comes from the more casual content in the game, and that the criticisms are largely scaled towards the endgame stuff. Yeah, obviously, I don't want there to be criticisms towards the endgame stuff, but the more accessible stuff is better for the overall game, because even hardcore players and raiders will often engage in those other systems at their own discretion. So it gives us something to go back to when maybe we don't feel like running Ultimate or Savage or doing whatever the heck we're doing in the endgame raiding scene at the time. Maybe I just want to chill and go get some orange scripts while playing Brighter Shores on the side. Maybe I can look forward to doing Unreal every Tuesday. Maybe I want to finish my music sheet collection in the Alliance raid or work on Triple Triad cards or whatever. Supporting those support systems, to me, more important than the endgame stuff, but they should also still be looking at all that stuff as well. Whew. Obviously, I had a lot to say about the topic, but it is really important because Endwalker starved us on this kind of stuff, and we really needed to be better here. So you will definitely hear more videos about my feelings on reward systems and structures as Dawntrail progresses, especially when we get to that 7.3 mark, where we really need to see how close that 50% increase came to being a reality. Anyway, that is going to be a wrap for this rant of a video. Be sure to like and subscribe and stay tuned. I'll be doing more rants on various topics in 7.1, not to mention we have Ultimate right around the corner where I will be competing in the world first race. We will be going as fast as possible. I'll be uploading all of our progress here on the channel, our kill, plus thoughts, guides, the whole kit and caboodle. It's going to be a busy time. But anyway, thanks for watching. I will see all of you in the next video. And until then, take care.